Batman can't save you from the Geek Legion of Doom.
Ryan Ebert directs and writes Summerween. What is Summerween? Well, until today I'd never even heard of it. But apparently it's some viral thing that the kids are doing that spun out of a TV show called Gravity Falls, which I've never seen. And yeah, it's basically kind of like a Halloween themed event in summer, and apparently it's been going since 2012. It must be a young person thing because I've never heard of it before, so here we go. But Summerween the movie is actually an asylum film who normally do mockbusters, but they clearly tried to make a horror film based on a kind of viral trend rather than you know, an actual blockbuster, which I think is probably a good idea. What's the story? Well, we have a serial killer that likes to dress up as a clown. And at the beginning of the movie, he is put in a mental hospital. And the cops that kind of arrested him got PTSD about it, basically. And a while later, there is a Summerween party at this clown's old residence, so an abandoned house. But it just so happens this clown breaks out of the mental asylum and wants to come home. And now all of these teenagers in this house are in mortal danger. Can the original police that arrested him all that time ago save the day? What will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what works in this movie's favour. As a general rule, when it comes to the asylum films, I have to say, and it's not always true, but I would say, you know, the films that are based on non-mockbusters, they do occasionally do more original films, and I would class this, even though it is based off a trend, I think are a little better than the kind of the mockbusters, generally speaking. Not all the time, but generally speaking. So this one, I think it feels more like a regular horror film rather than a cheap cash-in in some respects. And part of the why I say that in the positives is that I think the acting is fair. All right, the cast do. I mean, no one's amazing. No one's going to be, you know, sitting on a table with DiCaprio in the Oscars or anything like that. But it's fine for a B movie. I think everyone here does a decent enough job of playing cops, teenagers, you know, partying, all the rest of it, where you can at least buy into their sort of characters and sort of, okay, fine, you know, that's kind of what it is. So I think the acting here was actually pretty good. Good enough, for at least for you to kind of like to get into the characters in a kind of a low budget kind of slasher style horror film. And to go alongside with that, I think it's actually filmed relatively well. So the direction here, not spectacular, but solid. You know, the way that this movie is shot, and it's an attempt here to kind of build up a little bit of tension and things like that. Just the kind of like things like the cinematography, you know, it's of a reasonable standard. Again, I kind of am aware how quickly these kind of films are kind of turned over, so I do think it feels a little bit more sort of confidence behind the camera. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this is going to go next to kind of like the mainstream kind of horror films and be a comparable film, but again, when you compare it to its contemporaries, the kind of the lower budget end of kind of horror cinema, you know, I got to say, I think this at least is serviceable. It's not spectacular, as they say, but it's a serviceably shot horror film with okay acting. The story is acceptable. I think is probably the kindest way to put it. So it's not a terrible story. It's very generic, and we're going to come on to that again in a little bit. But I think if you like a pretty much A to B slasher horror film that is going to just deliver what you are probably going to want from a sort of a basic clown themed slasher movie, you know, it does the job. It sort of is there. It does the job you're probably going to expect through a somewhat throwaway, but kind of watchable to a point horror film. You know, with a killer clown in a house with teenagers, as attempting to have like a few traps and kind of using like, you know, rubber chickens and things like that as props. So there's a little bit kind of going on which you can kind of say, okay, you know, it's low budget, kind of a low budget fun movie to a degree. What doesn't work, and you know, I've kind of been hinting at it, but the movie is just so generic. I mean, it ultimately has no inspiration, you know, as a kind of a story. I think the killer clown, bad guy, antagonist is so played out at this point. There's been so many properties or it's one-off films or TV shows that have a killer clown as an antagonist. It's been done to death. It has been done to death. And this guy, our killer clown, is completely sort of vanilla in regards to, doesn't kind of stand out at all. I mean, and obviously you've got the kind of the highs like Pennywise and Art the Clown and stuff like that. And as such, that you have this sort of grading, I guess, of so many sort of killer clowns. And this one is just sort of completely unmemorable. I don't think the movie, although it's relatively well shot and I think it's competently directed, the one thing it does miss is a sense of like creepiness. It's like I said, it's serviceably directed, but it doesn't have much in the way of atmosphere. Halloween is spooky season, so I would assume that the Summerween idea is spooky, but in summer. And I don't really feel like it really took advantage of either that. I mean, so what's different about this movie? This could have been set at Halloween. It doesn't make the summer aesthetic of it, I felt, was nothing to do with the movie. It could have been any time. It could have just been a costume party. But instead we've called a movie Summerween. So does the summer season have much to do with it? No. You know, is it kind of like an outdoorsy thing? No, it's all in the house. I'm going to come on to that house again in a second. I've got a bone to pick with the house. And like I said, it's not spooky, so it's neither summery nor spooky. Missed opportunity. Yeah, the house. I mean, we're meant... This movie, you have to have a large dose of... yeah, that won't happen. You know, that kind of like, yeah, you believe that when you see it type mentality when watching this one. So we're meant to believe this killer clown is living in this huge house and has just been left abandoned after he was like, you know, put in a mental asylum. And it's just completely like, it doesn't look abandoned at all. It's completely in perfect shape and everything like that. What would have happened to the house? I mean, just don't think too much about it. And when he escapes from the asylum, you would have thought the first place they would have gone would have been his home, but they just seem to take an absolute age to get there. And this guy's like on foot, you know, it's so silly. It's just like, again, this movie is not worrying about having a kind of a plot which makes any type of sense. It just wants to have teenagers in a house with a killer clown, and we don't worry about the kind of the minutiae of the detail about how this kind of stuff was set up or how it kind of makes sense in any type of kind of reality or anything like that. I don't think the kills are especially exciting. Our clown doesn't look particularly exciting. He looks like just a generic clown. He doesn't really do anything of note, I have to say. The acting is fine, as I say, but the characters are very much just like vanilla stereotypes. Nothing kind of like, nothing memorable here. I don't blame the actors. It's just the kind of like the characters are just so bland. And that's the problem with this movie, is just bland. It's not badly made, you know, I'll give credit where credit is due. It looks like it's competently put together, but it's just not exciting, it's not interesting. So if you're just mad for killer clowns, maybe you'll like it. Or if you just really want to watch a kind of like, you've watched every slasher movie and you just, I've got to see them all, maybe this. But it's not a terrible movie, but a below average one. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. What were your thoughts? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Pennywise, that guy was a massive dickhead.